Hello and welcome to Face on WDLive, an opportunity to speak with some of the world leaders gathered here in Vancouver for the Women Deliver 2019 conference. I'm Hannah Vaughan and my guest now is Kristalina Georgieva, the Chief Executive Officer of the World Bank. Now, she came to the conference to speak on a plenary called The Power of Integration and Scale, Driving Big Global Social Change. We're going to talk lots more about that as well. And welcome, Kristalina. Thanks so much for being here in the WDLive studio.
Thank you for having me.
One of the big topics, the hot topics at this conference is putting a gender lens on global funding. Indeed, that's what I've just been talking about just in the session before coming to you. Gender lens, what does that mean for you in the context of your work at the World Bank?
For us, it means three things. One, we have great analytical capacity. And it is our duty to present the case for empowering of women, educating girls with the language of our main counterparts, the ministers of finance. Mm-hmm. Why is it smart economics? Mm-hmm. Two, every project we do, we put that gender lens, asking ourselves, how is it impacting women negatively or possibly positively? Can we do more? And then three, we have investments that are explicitly targeting girls and women. Health, education, access to finance, financial literacy, economic empowerment.
And so it's interesting you said there about smart investing, that it's not just that there's a moral imperative to invest in girls and women, but actually it makes sense. It makes economic sense. Well, and that must be the most powerful tool in your arsenal, really, when you're going around to different governments.
Definitely it is. But let me be clear, it is also morally right.
Yeah.
There is no excuse to treat girls and women differently than boys and men. But when we look at the economics of it, we have asked a very straightforward question. Is it true that the world is poorer because we are holding women back? So, here is the answer. Yes, it is.
It is true.
We
across
are
the globe?
actually across the globe. We calculate something that is called wealth of nations, how wealthy the world is. And we actually put a number of that, and we say the world today is 1,123 trillion in wealth. And then we look at what constitutes this wealth. Where does it come from? Some of it is nature, agricultural land, forestry, fisheries. Some of it is factories, cities.
Industrial manufacturing.
Exactly. Some of it is institutions, and a big chunk of it is us, people. So what came to a surprise for us is that the share of people in wealth is two-thirds. Two-thirds of the world's wealth is us. And then we asked how much less we have because women don't participate fully, and when they participate, they get the short end of the stick. And the answer is staggering. It is $160 trillion less than we have. So talk about good economics, give space to women, families, countries are wealthier.
So what are the biggest returns then on investing in gender equality, would it be? Is it just financial?
So in terms of returns on investment, education leads between 15 and 30 trillion of what I just spoke about would come if we get all girls to finish 12 years of schooling. Big boost. Then comes health, investing in women's health, and helping women invest in the health of their children, especially when they're young. That gives a big boost to nations. And then, of course, letting women work. I don't know whether you're familiar with this, but today, 2.7 billion women are restricted in where they can work, vis-a-vis men. So they can't work in professions that are perceived as dangerous, or they cannot work at night, or they cannot work without the permission of a man. They cannot travel without permission of a man. And all these restrictions, what do they mean? They mean that we have less And then comes on the cherry of this cake is women being underpaid. Globally, the pay gap between men and women, 20%. I thought that at least somewhere in a country that is very gender-minded, the gap would be zero.
Yeah.
Hannah, no such thing. Even Sweden has 5 to 6% pay
Well, in
gap.
my country, the United Kingdom, there's still a big pay gap as well. So
Yes.
we're not just talking about developing countries.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is a problem. I mean,
Yep.
it's staggering though when you think that women make up half the population of the entire globe.
Yes.
So why is it still? And all of the finances make sense as well. There's an economic argument for having more women involved in the workforce and girls in education in order to then later join the workforce. So why is it still seen as
Not
controversial?
You know, I have three explanations to that. One is because we are very slow to reform the legal systems. We do an assessment called Women, Business and the Law. And today there are only 6 countries in the whole world where women legally are equal to men. In an average economy, a woman would have only 3/4 of the legal rights of a man. So changing the laws helps, but we have to do that much faster than we currently are doing. The good thing is that what we do at the bank to disclose where countries are does push governments to take action. And we have seen in 131 countries legal reforms to improve the standing of women,
Okay.
including just this last month on May 10th, Saudi Arabia eliminated the requirement for a male companion when a woman wants to get a passport. It's a very good step. So this is one area. The second one is tradition. So you have social norms, and they say a woman looks after the children, after the elderly, stays at home. And changing these social norms, the way to do that really is to pressure on this issue of economics. We cannot have successful, vibrant middle class if we don't have two equally employable. And then comes the third part, which to me is one that takes most pushing. And it is identifying the barriers for women and then pushing women to step up.
Yeah.
A little bit the problem is us. Women are much more self-demanding. I'll tell you, you look at me.
Self-critical, maybe?
Self-critical, and we ask more from ourselves. You look at me, I am the CEO of the World Bank.
The first CEO and certainly the first female CEO.
Every step on the way, I would be dragged for my hairs to step up.
Yeah.
I would say, oh, this job, there may be somebody better than me.
Am I up to it?
Am I up to it? And this is what I tell women. It may be scary, but dare to step up.
Yeah.
Dare to step up.
Yeah, and I suppose that brings us to a conference like this, Women Deliver, here in Vancouver this year. It seems that there's an enormous, a catalyst for change at the moment. And when you have so many different players all coming together in one space over a couple of days, it seems when you're here, there's a real buzz around the place and you feel like change is imminent and change is happening. In the real world, though, does that dissipate after a couple of days? Or?
I believe change is happening. I have seen in the last decade much more drive in private sector, in organizations like mine, the World Bank, of course, civil society. And I think this change is happening because the world today is much faster moving and more fragile. And there is just a strong need for women to bring more consensual attitude to get engaged. For peace and prosperity, we need women. And I feel that women themselves are reaching this point when kind of enough is enough. We have been held back for so long. We don't want that to continue. My generation, women of my generation, we worked harder just to be equal. But we are now mothers and grandmothers. As a grandmother, I want my granddaughter to be treated as equal just because she is.
Just
I
'cause
don't
she
want
is.
her to go through the same pain. So look at me. I was much more moderate on engaging on issues of gender equality. Now I'm not. I don't have patience. I want to see it happening.
What is the role then for men in all of this? Because it's not about isolating women from men.
Completely not, yes.
You know, we all have to work together, and,
Yeah.
and you know, a man can be a feminist just as much as a woman can.
And there are many men that are very clearly stepping up. Some because they recognize that gender equality is good economics. I'll give you an example. Some years ago, the World Bank president was Jim Wolfenson. He comes to me and says, in a very difficult moment for the bank, Kristalina, so much work to do, so very few women to do it. Men recognize that women contribute, and sometimes contribute quite strongly. Take Prime Minister Abe in Japan. Abenomics, half of Abenomics is womenomics.
I like it.
It's womenomics.
Yeah.
He needs the women because Japan is aging. There isn't enough labor unless women step up. So there is this rational drive. But also, I think men, this he for she, I look at Prime Minister Trudeau or the Ethiopian Prime Minister, the President of Rwanda. These are men that are saying, we want gender equality for the strength of our societies, and we are not going to step back. I cannot say enough. Thank you. Thank you to the fathers, to the leaders that are seeing that this is a matter of well-being. I mean, it's so simple. No society can succeed without tapping in the talent of all people, men and women.
And how important is the gender lens for the World Bank? Because you work across so many different, it wouldn't just be gender equality, but it would be climate change as well, international development, etc. How fixed is the gender lens on all of those different elements that the World Bank is focused on?
We apply it on everything we do. Just yesterday, I had a man who leads our agriculture program coming to me to share some new ideas, some innovations they are promoting to bring rural women more into having assets, being able to bank, even if they are not on the title, they are not owners of land, that they can still have access to finance. What we see is that in everything we do, when we look at the impact and benefits for women, we get higher returns on the investment for the countries. I'll give you my favorite example, something I saw myself. In India, we fund rail. It's hugely important to get
the rail infrastructure.
Rail infrastructure. So in Mumbai, we fund a commuter rail, and we decided to put cars only for women. So
I see. So train carriages for women only.
Trade carriages, women only. So I wrote in one of them, and I'm asking women, is this important? And they say, hugely important. Protect against harassment, guarantees their safety. Because of it, some of them that would have not worked or would have not studied now can study.
They are now, yeah.
So that lens makes a difference in the lives of women.
Just finally, Kristalina, we're asking everyone who comes into the WDLive studio, how will you use your power? You are very powerful as the CEO of the World Bank. You've talked a lot about the gender lens and that you apply that to everything that you do. But following on from this conference, what will you take away from it? And
that change is happening. So how would I use my power? One, walk our own talk. At the World Bank, we aimed to have gender parity in our high ranks by 2020. Very proud to say we got it last year.
So you're walking the talk as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lift up women. So when the World Bank looks like the world, we are more effective in this world. But then two, be as ambitious and relentless in promoting gender equality with presidents, prime ministers, ministers of finance in all of our projects. I don't so here is my pledge. I would not have a meeting in which I won't talk about the importance of inclusion of women. Because to sustain this momentum, we have to be very, very prudent. Complacency is what can kill it. Complacency meaning, oh, well, now I have parity in my high ranks, I can relax. No, we cannot. That can roll back unless we are relentless.
So when you say you wouldn't have a meeting unless you're talking about the inclusion of women as well, would that include the number of women literally around the board table who you're having a conversation with?
Totally. Within the, at the bank, at the World Bank, now, because we have lifted up women, and it took some lifting, actually pushing women to step up sometimes.
Including yourself.
Including myself. That changes the conversation. Hannah, it changes the conversation. I'm not worried about the bank being with the gender lens because the women are at the table.
Yeah.
But then when we talk about discussions with our partners in governments, make a point that when we sit in the room, we want to have women.
Yeah, women represented.
Representing their communities, and that when we consult around what should our next road project be, we have to talk to women.
Yeah.
We also have to be mindful that women are often at risk, risks of sexual abuse in some of our projects. Be attentive to these risks. And when you have that change in mindset, then the result is that on the other side of the table, people don't need any more urging. That is the power of mainstreaming.
Yeah, so when you're talking
Bringing
about
it in.
new projects, for example, with a partner and investing a significant amount of money perhaps in their country, would the issue of sexual harassment be at the forefront of your mind as to whether that funding is actually delivered?
Very much so. One, now in all our projects where there is a risk of sexual abuse, exploitation, prostitution, we always require not only that our staff is mindful, but that our contractors, the construction workers, that they sign a code of conduct and that they're trained to respect this code. And two, and the second one is very important, in countries where this is quite profound, we actually have projects that aim to fight sexual harassment and abuse. We help countries, Rwanda is a case of hands, Democratic Republic of Congo. We help countries set up the systems that investigate abuse, go after the penetrators, provide to the survivors psychological support and other forms of help. And you know how dramatically different a community looks like when women have more confidence that they can walk without fear outside of their houses. Change takes time.
But it is
takes
happening.
time, but it is happening.
That's a wonderful message to end on. Kristalina Georgieva, I almost got it absolutely perfectly right with the pronunciation.
You got it perfect.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Kristalina is the first CEO of the World Bank and the first woman to hold that role as well. And it's been such a pleasure to have you on in the WDLive studio. So thank you. That was Face to Face, live here from Women Deliver. And thanks so much for watching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.